Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Hello, Bat family, and welcome to this episode, number 198 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all of the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at BatPodNetwork. I'm Garret Grev. You can follow me on Twitter at Garret Wado and email me topics, suggestions, feedbacks, fantasy football advice, getting to be that season, maybe questions. I'll give you my advice if you're so daring. You can do that at garret.grev at batmanonfilm.com. As always, thank you for listening. Well, Bat family, you're pretty used to, at this point, listening to the podcast feed here, to listening to us talk about Batman on Film on the Batman on Film podcast. Naturally, only makes sense. You're probably also used to us talking about his villains a bit as well. You may have even caught episodes 156 and 157, a review of Todd Phillips Joker movie, as well as episode 159, the first time rumors of a potential sequel to Joker were discussed. That's all on the podcast feed and the website. Scroll on back. It's 2019, pre-pandemic. We didn't know what was happening. But they're there. You can listen to them. On this episode of the Batman on Film podcast, I'm pleased to put on my finest purple suit. I'm going to straighten up my acid shooting boutonniere. I'm going to grab my trusty old crowbar for an entire episode dedicated to the Harlequin of Hate, the Ace of Knaves, the Jester of Genocide, and the Clown Prince of Crime, the Joker. Now, the Joker is just far too fiendish. Far too terrifying to discuss by myself, all alone. Of course, we've discussed this. I'm a tender sort, so I've invited an old chum to be my faithful ward down here in the Bat Cave. He's the librarian of the Batman Book Club. He is attracting all of the top comic creator talent across of the Bat universe to be on his podcast. He is a Mountain Dew enthusiast and a lover of breakfast cereals. He, of course, is the one and only BOF senior contributor, Ryan Lauer. Hey, pal. Welcome back to the show.
This podcast needs an enema.
Of course. And when I say welcome back to the show, depending when we get this all, edited and posted, the listeners most likely just heard you on a social hour also talking about the Joker. So Ryan Lauer, I always associate you with the Riddler for some reason. It's your mischievous nature and charming good looks. But the listeners might be coming to think of you as Mr. J himself here.
Oh, wow. That's a compliment. Because the Riddler is very smart.
He's a smart guy.
I can guarantee you he's a lot better at riddles than I am. I suck at riddles. But yes, I'm happy to be here to talk to my friend, my roommate, Garret Grev.
Oh, yeah.
Always a joy.
Down in Texas, living it up. We got to find a part 2 for that. Rarely have two grown adults met up at a hotel for the first time ever and had such, maybe PG-13 at the very leading edge hijinks, just hanging out, talking silly talk, drinking a couple beers and enjoying Batman
I feel like
movies.
you started that, and I'm like, man, where's he going to go with this one? Because all of it's sounding very erotic. And I'm like, I don't think you're trying to make it sound erotic, but it's definitely sounding erotic.
It was erotically platonic, and we need to re-up on that in a future watch party, but probably before that even. So, pal, here's what we're going to do. We'll cover a little bit of news since the listener heard you talk and Bill talk as well about the potential sequel to Joker that seems like it's full stream ahead. We'll touch on that just briefly in the news. And then the topic du jour, where does he get those wonderful toys? Our toys we're going to be playing with are the live action presentations of the Joker across the major. These are the hits, right? We're playing the hits here. We're not going to talk about Jerome and Gotham. We're not going to talk about, I don't know, the guy in the OnStar commercial or fan films or Birds of Prey, right? He showed up real briefly in Birds of Prey. We're going to go to the big ones. The big ones the listeners want to hear. But we're going to be talking about all of those wonderful all the wonderful and maybe one or two of the not so wonderful portrayals of the Joker across live action Batman or Joker-centric movies. And if that sounds like a delight to you, I'd love for you to keep listening after we get to the news.
3, 2, 1.
Cue music. Cue Becky.
Good evening.
All right, Ryan. So news broke this week about, there were rumors, of course, when a movie costs like $60 million to make, and earns $1 billion at the global box office. Of course, there's going to be talk about sequels. In all of the hubbub about the Warner Brothers and Discovery merger, there are bits and pieces about Todd Phillips doing more work and, them really kind of digging more one-off stuff. They didn't say that they could make on the cheap and make a bunch of money off of, but that seemed to be implied because we know Zasloff and the crew that's over at Discovery, they're penny pinchers. They want to make the money. This is a business for these guys, which
It's
to
a
be
business,
clear,
doggone it.
But to be clear, it's all a business.
Yeah.
Even when you think it's for, unless it is, now I'm failing to think of a real sort of down and gritty making movies for just the joy and art of it. It's all commercial movie making is all a business. They're just really sharpening the pencil on this bad boy. If you're not going to turn a profit, they're willing to kick a little dust at J.J. Abrams' way for not getting on his horse and producing some content here that's going to make them money.
And I like it.
I like it too. Man. Yeah, I'm not against that. Even in
Let's
the
get
league.
going. Come on, JJ.
I'm on record as being. I know the youth aren't a big fan of it anymore. I'm still a capitalist. I think the opportunity to turn a profit and hire people by making some stuff people enjoy is a A-OK thing in my book. But the news really broke in a big way that the sequel to the Joker would be moving ahead. There's a script apparently written. We saw Todd Phillips share that, I believe, on his Instagram account. And the title, Joker, Folie à Deux. That's French. My kids go to a French immersion school.
Your French is very good. Well done.
I asked the 9-year-old how to say it.
Oh.
He knew what it meant.
On him. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, according to him. And then, of course, I checked the Google. Folly for two. I think even if you were just to read that and have to guess what it said, I've seen other places say madness shared by two. Seems like maybe you're reading into that a little bit more. Maybe, I don't speak French, but I don't know, maybe there's a connotations there. But the big news that broke this week, of course, was looking at a partner for this Joker, partner with some musical talents. And the only, she doesn't wear meat dresses anymore, but she's still kind of a weirdo. That Lady Gaga. Ryan, how was your poker face, so to speak, when you heard this news? Were you shocked, surprised, saddened, angered? What were your thoughts, man? Real quick. Give me the soundbite version of what you told Bill 2 episodes ago. How about that?
I want to just go into all sorts of Gaga songs, but I will not.
I held back at just the one, right? So far.
I was surprised. I was surprised. The social hours, which were good discussions with Bill. I talked more in this, and the past 2 actually are about this Joker sequel. And I believe I said in the first one with the title of this sequel, if I had to guess, it was like Ryan guessed. I'd say, okay, it seems like shared madness, Harley Quinn, and that'd be really interesting in this world. I don't have any kind of inside info or anything. Then it came out, and I was not the only one. It's not like I cracked some kind of code, It's like a lot of people speculated, like this feels like Harley Quinn if it's a shared kind of thing and whatever speculation. And I was all with that too. And then this came out, in which I glazed over the musical aspect of the.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that.
Yeah,
this
sorry.
Going to be a
Okay.
musical. No, I mean, the cat's out of the bag.
And I saw Lady Gaga, and I'm like, that is interesting. Everything last week about it, it was like this. I'm intrigued by this. I'm intrigued by this idea of a sequel. And then, Lady Gaga, and I'm like, that is interesting. I really like that because I think she could fit. She's a good actress. This could fit in this gritty world that was set up. And then I saw musical, and I'm like,
gosh,
I'm not a musical fan.
Oh man, I live for the applause.
Yeah,
got another one.
I'm gonna talk to you on the telephone after this.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah. Okay.
But for now, just dance.
That's the sound of people deleting their download. Same kind of thing. Like, but it's just so wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's piqued my interest, and maybe that's the genius. Like for the people that said we don't need a Joker sequel, like now it's like, oh, okay, well, something this weird. I got to check out what these weirdos are weirding up to over there.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people that already wanted a Joker sequel, they were probably going to go see it anyway, right? And to be honest, most of us nerds that, said we didn't really want a Joker sequel, we're going to see it anyway because we're gluttons and we just can't help ourselves. As I thought about this a little bit
more. You'd say that we were born this way.
Oh, golly gosh.
Sorry.
It is really something, man. You're doing a good job at this. Some people might say A Star is Born here. It's
I mean, that's what the paparazzi says.
I'm leaving this all in. Every single bit of it. Not a single terrible Gaga pun is going to get left on the editing room or the dance floor, whatever you want to do. So I thought about this a little bit more, right? And I'm like, Star is Born. That was a Warner Brothers vehicle. That didn't cost that much money to make. And it made them a ton of money and got them, and the peak cinephile cred, right? Like that movie was up for some hardware, brought home some hardware, right? So it kind of makes sense where Warner Brothers would be like, we got this relationship with, Lady Gaga. She stopped wearing her meat dresses. It's not nearly as dangerous to be involved with her anymore. Like, let's bring her back for another movie, pair her up with an IP like Joker that just net us like, what, $940 million of profit or, minus marketing. I get all that. But it seems so wild. But then on the other hand, it kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. Like,
it's like a perfect illusion,
Yeah, take it.
But I was going to say, I think they're also, and I said this with Bill, I don't know if it's Zaslav or Zaslav, David Z.
That's the Batman book club shortcut.
Exactly. They're in the Todd Phillips business. And he has, I think he has a production company with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
And so Joker, they were both producers on it. As you already said, A Star is Born, they were both producers on it. Joker, I mean, the sequel, I just assumed that they'd both be producers on it as well. And I mean, obviously the Hangover movies were massively successful. We're talking, over a decade ago now, but still, it just seems like he's really, I don't know, they're in the Todd Phillips business. And so Zaslav even used Phillips as an example and Joker as an example and bringing it up. I think it was, I mean, I'm sorry if I was wrong, but CinemaCon, of saying like more movies like Joker or something like that. So it's kind of leaning up that this is a wild idea, and here you go, have at it. If you are going to cost roughly the same, and we have half the success as the first one, we'll still be extremely happy.
It's still a huge hit. It's still a huge hit. It could cost almost twice as much and make half as much, and it'd be like, that's still a hit movie. That's the margin on something like that is not shallow.
Oh, goddamn.
But I mean, interesting, right? I think the next logical thing, when you think Joker over the last years, the most notable or first thing that pops to mind a lot, besides Batman, obviously, is Harley Quinn. And it seems like a logical progression for the story to look into the bad romance between the two of them.
There you go. I thought, see, you went that route, and I'm like, those two characters are always playing a love game.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. It's 100%. They're playing a love game. And, I think at the end of it, it never really works out that well. And Harley Quinn's always left to ask if and she's saying a lot of times, I'll never love again.
I'm still thinking about Alejandro.
Yeah, how are we going to work it all?
Alejandro.
Yeah.
And I'm spent.
Well, let's just put it this way. With this idea, this cast, this writer and director, I think they could be on the edge of glory with the sequel.
Damn. I thought you were done.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm ready to tell Todd Phillips, hey, do what you want.
Capper. Now, there's a lot of songs in there, but I think coherent. It's very coherent, though. It does make sense. Because it's Joker and Harley Quinn. Yeah. So it works.
They're always playing a love game,
It's I mean, I see that there's also a song called Government Hooker. I don't know how we can.
Oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just taking one last peruse. No, I think we hit the ones, at least the ones I've heard. Alejandro. By the end of this episode, we're going to find a way to work it in. Right. So real quick, you on board? You excited? Or at least interested enough that your ticket's basically pre-sold?
I remain intrigued, even at the idea last week when Todd Phillips posted those pictures on Instagram. I know I'm going to be there. If not opening night, definitely opening weekend, because I'm just intrigued by it. And I support the DC movies. And I mean, I was such a fan of the first one. It was your feel-good movie of the year, but I thought it was done really well. It was very interesting, and like it just definitely, I really dug that movie. So it was pretty much whatever when rumors were out that a sequel is coming and stuff. I'm like, I'll be there to see what you come up with. Even, I mean, the musical aspect, it's not it doesn't make me say, oh, I'm not going to watch that movie or anything like that. It's just like, oh, dang.
I've seen that too.
If the musical aspect, if that holds true, that doesn't excite me. That doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it and be open-minded. So,
well, I am a musical fan, and but I'm with you. Like, I'll be there. I'll watch it. I'm invested. I'll go to the movie theater. If we have
the 9-year-old to translate all the French.
No, I was saying we'll have to line up another BOF watch party, and you and I can go to the movie together. We'll sit next to each other, and maybe you can even hold my hand. Theme from Top Gun Maverick. Okay. All right, let's get out of this one before we make it more unbearable.
Judas Priest.
Very nice. Lauer, if you thought you were going to get out of this episode without an opportunity or a forced appearance on America's favorite bat-based trivia game, well, you better think again, buddy, because the people want it. They demand it. That's right. Another thrilling edition of What Are You?
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me. What are you?
All right, Ryan. It's been a minute since you played this last, and I don't need to remind the listeners. I probably don't need to remind you. You're not very good at this game, man.
Not at all.
And of course, the way we play this game is I give Ryan and also you, the listeners, who of course are playing along at home or in your car, or maybe
I just want to say that I am a big fan of one Sir Trey Jackson.
Oh,
because that gentleman, not only did he save us in Texas with a car, but he also he hopped on a podcast this podcast, and I got to be on with him, and he totally understood. He said it's very different when you're on the spot,
the bright
and I'm
shining
like, someone
lights.
who understands. As a listener, you feel like the smartest man in the room, but when you're here participating in this damn game, you're clueless. You lose.
The only thing that makes you feel smarter than you feel while you're a listener is while you're writing this out. Because as I write this out every single time, I'm like really not trying to go for the jugular. But you realize when you pull some of these facts and trivia out and they're in a vacuum, it can be challenging. So this is how we do it.
Okay.
I give 3 sort of garden variety difficulty clues as to the identity, and I'll give you this one. We're talking about a character, the identity of the character in question. The goal is to be able to name, what are you, with as few questions or a few clues needed as possible. So I will give the first clue, take a pause. Ryan will raise his hand. Let me know if he can answer it. If he can't, we go on to the second. If he can't, we go on to the third. Listeners, you're playing at home. The fourth one, I try to make a giveaway. We all want to be winners here. A lot of us were 90s kids, millennials. You get your participation trophies at soccer, whether you win or lose. So the fourth one is your chance to get it. It doesn't always work out that way.
No.
So Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Are you prepared?
I'm as prepared as I'll ever be.
I already told you we're talking about a character. On top of that, we are talking about a villain. Clue number 1. This villain's name is taken from the 16th century Italian physical comedy theater, Commedia dell'arte. What are you? Nothing from Ryan yet. We'll move on to clue number. He's intrigued. We're going to move on to clue number 2. This character, while always possessing a high IQ and combat skills, their abilities were adjusted early in their publishing history to include immunity to toxins and enhanced strength and agility. What are you? He's thinking, he's pondering. Can't tell if he's a little bit sunburnt or if he is just turning red from the stress. We're going to move on to clue number 3. This character originated outside of published DC Comics, but has gone on to have various one-shots, limited series, ongoing series, and different iterations across the published DC multiverse. What are you? See, this is where I feel smart when I'm writing them.
Yeah.
I actually
You're
had
a real smarty pants, you are.
I had a couple different versions of these clues, and I thought they were too easy, or actually too hard, so I dropped them down a level. Ryan, something tells me clue number 4 is going to be the winner for you and the listeners.
Oh, don't count on it.
Yeah, no, trust me, this is a real gimme. This is the one time I've really held true to answer 4 as the participant trophy. Clue 4. This character is most famously portrayed by 2 actresses, Arlene Sorkin and Margot Robbie. What are you?
Well, nobody at home will believe me that this was my guess on clue A.
I was pretty on the nose tonight, Ryan.
So many times I thought I had the
gut.
answer after the first, and then that third clue comes in, and I say, "Oh boy, that was not it." Yep, that was not it. And so, see, this is why this game I hate it. Because you asked me what's my guess? Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, you are the big winner on clue number 4.
I'm the only participant, and I won. That's what it takes for me to win.
Hey, you beat Peter tonight. Harley Quinn,
Peter.
Of course, created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm for Batman the Animated Series, 22nd episode, Joker's Favor, immediately became a hit. They said they knew they had something with the creation of this character. There was more to do with her than sort of the walk-on, nameless character that they originally had thought they needed for the show, and the rest is history, of course. Like, DC's Deadpool a lot of time is the shorthand, but I mean, realistically, is Harley Quinn the biggest character created in the modern comic book time frame for DC? Is anybody bigger of the last 30 years?
So 30 years would be 1992. It's definitely not Ghostmaker.
Oh my gosh. Get out of here with the Ghostmaker. No one, sorry, I know. And I know it's not because of me, right? It's because of Bill. I know there's some industry people that listen to this. I make no apologies. Stop with the Ghostmaker. No one likes it.
Regina George said it best. Stop. Wait. Oh, see, I'm going to misquote. But basically, she understands it. Stop trying to make fetch
happen. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Ghostmaker's never going to be fetch.
No. But I think you're on to something though. I don't think that there is a character that is in the past 30 years. And also she is becoming just as malleable as Batman.
Oh yeah.
She fits into a ton of genres, a ton of different tones. You said DC's Deadpool. I think that's spot on. I think you could almost do anything with Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
At this point, and it fits.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the character is interesting enough that it attracts talented creatives to work on her that have the gift to tell different types of stories.
Yeah.
And the fan base has embraced the character enough that they're willing to go along on almost any ride. And where it is, all the more interesting with Batman because of the long publication history and all the variants appearances across different forms of media. I think Harley on her side also has it going that, she's only got like 3 decades worth of existence. So nothing is too, written in holy script and untouchable. Like there's the basics, you can tell if you get too not Harley, like, I don't know, she had an iteration in Thrill Killer, right? That didn't feel very Harley, but that was before she was really in mainstream continuity. But he can do just about anything because she still feels fresh, I guess, in a number of ways to me.
Yeah. She's younger than I am.
Yeah, me too.
So, hey, there we go.
She doesn't have 4 kids and go to work every day because she's a middle-aged dad,
She doesn't drink Mountain Dew while eating her Golden Grams for supper, so
she might. You never know with Harley. That actually feels like something Harley could do.
She's a wild card.
Yeah, either that or a delightful egg sandwich, which I enjoy. I love it.
If she were real, she'd be in Us Weekly all the time. Be like, see, she's just like us.
Just like us. Yep. All right. Well, that's been Harley Quinn's edition of Ryan Lauer's winning turn at What Are You? And now we're on to the main event.
Where does it get those wonderful toys?
Love that Joker.
All right, Lauer, we sat at the precipice of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Very Joker centric, and the channel's been Joker centric lately. Of course, we are, a few months removed from the Batman, and that's still been doing gangbusters. We'll end up talking a little bit about the Batman, but the talk of movies in the DC world, besides what's going on in the DCEU or whatever the heck that is, and everything. All the troubles going on and over with the Flash and its actor. And of course, Black Adam made a big splash, and you can listen to a podcast focused on that. Also with Ryan Lauer, I believe. A lot of Ryan Lauer.
Too much.
No, never enough. But the talk's been all Joker, so it makes sense that we do a Joker-centric episode. And since we're on film for most things, we're talking live action. So here's what we're going to do, dear listeners. We are going to be reviewing, and more so discussing, the various iterations of the Joker across live action material. I was going to say feature films, but you can't forget 66. So we'll just say live action in general. The big hitters. We'll do the rundown for you real quick. Actors you're going to hear us talk about: Mr. Cesar Romero, Mr. Jack Nicholson, Mr. Heath Ledger, Mr. Jared Leto, Mr. Joaquin Phoenix, and Mr. Barry Keoghan. Lauer, we looked it up before.
What we do on the Batman Book Club. Barry K.
Barry K. Yeah. Easy. Irish stuff. Sometimes it's hard to pronounce. They speak English. You wouldn't know it by listening to them. Sorry, pals in Ireland. But we're going to be looking at those actors' portrayal of the Joker. And Ryan and I could go on and on about this. So we want to kind of give ourselves a particular lens to look at these things. So we're going to be talking about 4 different things for each of them. The material they were given, their appearance, because of course that's always a hot topic when you're talking about the Joker. The performance of the actor itself, independent of the material, just how did they perform it? And then of course, because geeks got a geek, comic book accuracy.
Oh, sure.
So with that, Ryan, are we ready to embark? Should we go chronological? I feel like that might be the easiest.
Chronologically, yes. That's
all right.
My OCD as well.
Let's get in the DeLorean. 88 miles per hour, 1.21 gigawatts. Einstein is in the passenger seat. We're going to go all the way back to 1966. Bill Dozier's Batman, starring Adam West, Burt Ward, and of course, the most iconic villain, right? Catwoman, Julie Newmar.
Egghead.
Oh man, you love the Egghead. But
Yep.
I think if you ask someone off the street, right,
Mhm.
who is the biggest villain in the 66 series, they're gonna tell you Cesar Romero in the Joker, correct?
Yeah.
So 66 Joker probably stands out from the rest of these Jokers in a number of ways. He actually does have a body count, right? Like I think there were deaths that the Joker was at least implicit in there, especially in the first season, if I'm remembering correctly. There was a couple more people that just straight up died. Riddler's gal pal in the first couple episodes fell down in the nuclear reactor for the Batmobile battery. I remember that randomly. I guarantee the Jokers had somebody in those lines too, but not as menacing of a homicidal killer clown that we would grow to love and loathe in later decades. Let's start with the material Mr. Romero was given and the 66 Joker. How would you describe that material if you had to for the listeners, Ryan?
Whimsical,
Yeah.
energetic, loud, bouncy.
Manic, right?
Yeah. And I think fit into the comics of the time.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So the comic book accurate. I'm jumping all over the place.
No,
but,
that's fair.
I think that I don't know. I think that he definitely a comic book accurate manic live action version of the Joker. A little bit page to screen.
Yeah, for
Almost
what was
spot
going
on.
on at the time, right?
Yeah.
And just sort of wacky, right? Everything was a
Mhm.
little bit, and of course, in the 66 series, by its very nature, was camp,
Yeah.
intentionally so. But the Joker, man, my boys and I just watched the first two-parter that the Joker appeared in. And one of the major things that the Joker did to like trick Batman and Robin, it was very tricksy, right? Like it was not even always like prank, like haha, fooled you, but like tricking his way into crimes or befuddling the Cape Crusaders in some way. It was a museum, and his trick on this, it was a museum dedicated to famous comedians.
Mhm.
And Joker's trick was to lock himself inside of the museum and not break into it, but get what he wanted to break out. And he hid behind a statue of himself until a smoke bomb went out, and he just sort of walked from around the corner. Now, I assume in the show itself, they intended for him to be hiding within the statue somehow, but it didn't look like that. It looked like the dude just walked out from behind it. It was like, haha, I'm here now.
Yep.
And I think that was sort of the character, right? The material did not take itself too seriously. Joker at the time had sort of already morphed into this wacky, clown prince of crime, not killer sadistic prince of crime. So the material was fairly lighthearted, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like a lighthearted Joker? I mean, is that something that you not is it your preference, but do you enjoy it? Does it bug you, to ask it in the more negative vein?
It does not bug me, as I've said with. So a good comparison that is animation. I like Brave and the Bold, but I binge the animated series.
Sure.
So Joker's kind of the same way. That version of Joker. You have the lighthearted aspect of him. I do enjoy smaller increments than the version that we're more familiar with of like the homicidal clown, borderline scary, darkly comedic.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Uncomfortably comedic. So Romero's Joker actually isn't even my favorite villain of the show. I do think it is like it's Riddler or Egghead,
sure,
more so than Romero's Joker. But that's not a slant at all on his interpretation. It's just that's not my favorite version of my favorite villain on that show. Definitely not my favorite Joker, live action Joker either.
I've always been partial to Gorshin's Riddler myself. I think it was just so good, and they were kind of sort of doing riffs. Oh my gosh, that's creepy, Lauer.
Sorry.
You were
It
you're kind of, but they were both kind of doing a version of the same thing. The riddles were the big differentiator, but besides that, it was
He's
sort
just
of
as manic.
Yeah,
so.
just as manic. And Joker wasn't necessarily like the material certainly wasn't dark jokes. You weren't going to get that in 66. But Joker wasn't even always telling a lot of jokes as much as he found everything funny.
Yeah.
He was laughing at everything. He wasn't always making the jokes. He was laughing at everything and finding humor in all sorts of situations, which was interesting. Okay, so we got the material. Everybody talks about the appearance. And this, Lauer, I got to admit, let me ask you this. What is Romero's Joker most famously known for at this point?
Green mustache.
The mustache, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if I told you I didn't even know that thing existed until like adulthood?
Yeah, I didn't either.
Right? Okay, good. Because now it seems like everybody knows there was always a mustache. And it feels like...
How noticeable was it? And this is a genuine question, because I can't remember when I was 10, 11 years old, what I did or didn't recognize.
Right.
First I got to see of the movie was renting a movie and watching it, the old tube TVs,
on a VHS, I'd imagine.
VHS, yes, of a worn out video cassette tape. And then our cable finally got TV Land when it showed up, had a big debut on TV Land, and we watched it again on an old standard, def TV. I don't know how did everybody pick up on it then? Because I don't know. I don't
think so, man. I really
when
don't.
we got those Blu-rays, Blu-ray of the movie when it first came out, it was noticeable,
right?
And then the Blu-ray of the TV series, it was definitely, and that's always referenced now of his mustache.
It's like the go-to thing.
Yeah.
I think I read about it on ain'titcoolnews.com at some point in the very late 90s, early 2000s when I was in high school or college. Probably college. I think I was more grown than a high school kid.
And it's a requirement now. Any kind of merchandise, they have to have that.
Oh,
I got the 60s Batmobile Lego set, and it came with the Joker. And he's got a little green mustache going on.
I feel like he's got it on the McFarlane figures too.
Mm-hmm.
The surf, board short Joker or whatever that one is, and everything else.
One of the greatest half hours of TV of all time. Anyways.
Well, because I watched it first on UHF 54 out of the Red River Valley in North Dakota. We picked it up with like the enormous antenna we had on top of my house. We still only got 2 channels. And I watched it on that. So it was like UHF quality, old school TV, probably 1989, maybe 1990. Big old TV, tube TV, where it was like built into wooden furniture and sat on the ground like that one. You were not noticing that mustache. And I mentioned this to my oldest, my 9-year-old, we were watching. I've got them on Apple TV, purchased, and it's 4K. And I said, hey, buddy, did you know that when I was a little boy, I never noticed that Joker had a mustache? And he goes, what? Are you kidding me? That's the first thing you can see. There's clearly a mustache there. And I had to explain how, us in 2022 watching 4K, video across high-speed internet in the Apple TV was a much different world than like trying to get that dial just in the right spot, to get rid of enough fuzz to be able to enjoy the show. But outside of the infamous mustache, let's go to, makeup that doesn't cover the mustache, hair, and costume. Thoughts on this Joker? You already said page to screen, so I think I know where you're going. I'll just jump right in and say, this looked like the Joker out of the comic books at the same time period. I don't know if there was really any difference whatsoever. In some episodes, I felt like his hair wasn't as green and had almost sort of like a greenish blonde tint to it. But outside of that, you couldn't get more Jokery.
You get that white skin and a little bit and green hair, and for the most part, that's Joker. So he was wearing a suit that had green, which is also kind of a requirement we feel now too. And then more of a pink suit, but never bothered me.
Yeah, it was a very light magenta. Is that maybe I don't know my colors all that well, but it was light purple, pink. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. You can't. I can't say you can't. Looking at him, I'd find it hard that you wouldn't know that's the Joker.
Does he doesn't have a perma smile? Is that a problem? It's a painted on smile.
I mean, I just pulled him up, and that painted on smile, like, for crying out loud, that's shown up in Batman books now, even.
Right.
So it's, I don't know. There's a lot of different versions, but the parts that people latch onto, he's got like white skin or makeup and green hair, and he's smiling. So, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty easily identifiable as the Joker to me. So
we got the appearance. Let's consider this. We also checked the box on comic accuracy, I think, with this, right? 60s, 50s and 60s Joker was a prankster. He was funny. He was making life difficult for Batman and Robin. He wasn't out on killing sprees. They didn't need to stop him from murdering more innocents. Wasn't announcing who he was going to kill next over the radio or anything like that. They'd moved on from that point. So let's go to performance. Cesar Romero, big star, right? Like that was kind of the deal in the 60s. Like, let's get some big names, some stars at the time to play these characters. How do you do playing the Joker, Ryan?
He did a great job.
Yeah, great job.
All the energy worked. He was a scene stealer. I don't know what they could have asked anybody else to do differently for that show as that character.
It's wild. I mean, can you imagine? I just think about Adam West and Burt Ward to a little bit lesser extent, having to play, the straight man next to Romero's Joker, just like any of those villains, so over the top. And,
Tommy Lee Jones would have hated it.
Oh my gosh, he couldn't sanction that kind of buffoonery.
None at all.
Not even a little bit. Like, that would be because Romero brings the energy every single. He doesn't take a scene off. One of the things in the performance that I'm always kind of taken with, and it doesn't necessarily make me feel like peak Joker, but just like, and this is sort of independent of that. Just what was the performance, independent of its Jokeriness? How do they deliver? Romero never takes a scene off, even when the Joker isn't sort of the focal point of the scene. I think to the movie quite a bit, and I guess we could have just said feature films and kept it right to the movie. But when he is not delivering the line, he's always doing something with his face. There's always some sort of like hard side eye look to one direction. His lips sort of move over to the others. He's like thinking or befuddled or pondering or like poised into action, like he's about to spring. Like, he had to be exhausted at the end of his days shooting this role with his performance. It's like a slinky, right? Or a spring that's just like wound up, and sometimes it's bouncing all over, much like one of those Joker Jack in the Box things, right? Like, sometimes it pops out and it scares you, and sometimes it's just bouncing all over. This guy's not going to scare you, but he's always active in some way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Otherwise, I feel like
valid.
I was really going down a wrong path. Nah, man, you're a dummy, Garrett.
Very valid Joker.
So let's move on here. We're gonna head forward in time. We'll give an evaluation here at the end. And we won't necessarily have to rank, but maybe we can do closing thoughts.
Okay.
Rapid fire.
Got it. Yeah.
If you want to rank, Lauer, you can convince me otherwise.
I don't think I could.
Tough.
Yeah, I could.
All right, let's see if the spirit moves us.
We'll see. Yeah.
Flash forward about 20 plus years into the future, and we get Jack Nicholson. I mean, one of the biggest movie stars, iconic star of screen, to play the Joker in what at the time, as much as we talk about the sort of outcry and fans being up in their feelings about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman at the time, no one was saying that about Jack Nicholson, right? Like, if anything, you might have had people say, is it too on the nose to have Nicholson play the Joker? But play him he did in 1989's Batman. So, Ryan, give us your thoughts on the material, what shows up on the page for this iteration of the Joker played by Jack Nicholson.
The material that he is dealt with,
yes,
is pretty spot on for what he's able to do, and what I think this version of the Joker that they were trying to portray.
And I think we can be, I don't want to say more critical. I think our expectations can shift a little bit as we move forward in time, because there's obviously more decade of published material from a comic book when we think about comic accuracy standpoint.
Yeah.
So whereas Joker in 1966 had his basic, his initial iteration, and then what the character had morphed into for, call it at least 20 years. We had seen Joker evolve, or maybe devolve a bit back to his beginnings by the time Batman 89 rolled around, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Nicholson, with that material, the script, Sam Hamm, for me, and maybe this crosses over to comic book accuracy just a bit, the only real issue I could ever have looking back, I guess there's two of them. One, we meet Jack before he's Joker, right? Jack Napier. If I were to watch that, if that movie were to come out today, I think that'd be a little bit of a bugaboo for Garret. Little kid Garret rolled with the punches. I like I don't know your origin, Joker. That'll show up later as we talk about other people. And then Joker wasn't as much a stand-up comedian-esque performer as he was very much a graphic and visual artist, was where they leaned in, but a performer, to be sure, right? So from a material standpoint, and of course he dies at the end. Spoiler alerts if you haven't seen Batman 89. What are you doing listening to a Batman on Film podcast, you weirdo? But the material was great. He was sadistic. He killed people. He thought it was funny to kill people. He thought it was funny. He thought things were funny that no one else thought was funny. And he was fairly unpredictable, which I think is always a key Joker characteristic. He's got a girlfriend. He might burn her face with acid and throw her off a balcony, and then, go, pick some dead flowers and give him.
Can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Right?
Yeah.
So material wise, that's where we are. Appearance. Are there nits to pick with this Joker appearance, in your opinion, Ryan?
People, and put it bluntly, would say he's too old and he's too overweight to be the Joker.
Pudgy Joker. A
Yeah.
little bit of a pudgy Joker.
I could go in the other room and grab my book that has Strange Apparitions from Marshall Rogers and Steve Englehart in it, and pull out an image of the Joker from Marshall Rogers, and I think you could say, oh, that's where they got the Nicholson look from.
Sure.
So
a seminal run, right? Like,
yeah,
a big inspiration to thinking about, like, I think the one and only Michael Uslan has talked about Strange Apparitions as one of the runs coming out of the 70s that kind of shaped what his view of a live action Batman movie could look like, right? So that would only make sense.
And also was kind of, you want to talk about blueprints with directors these days.
Well, the kids love saying blueprint.
That run was a blueprint for the 89 movie.
Yeah.
In some characters and characterizations and stuff. And I think
Gotham. Yeah.
But the Nicholson Joker just instantly makes me think like that's the Marshall Rogers Joker to me.
And I feel like now, 2022 looking back, and we've got probably 40-ish years of like Slender Man Joker, 35, really maybe 30 when they really started to lean, 35 years, like long, sort of elongated limbs, very thin. That wasn't
6'2", 160 is when they give those body stats. He's somewhere around there. He's a skinny guy.
But depending how he's drawn, I mean, Kelly Jones doesn't draw a 6'2", 160 Joker. He draws a 6'7", 120 Joker, right? And his limbs are Like it's that stylized thinness. Even thinking about like Hush in when Jim Lee draws Joker, like very stylized, and that's Jim. Jim doesn't really do that, but his Joker is a skinny, long, limp fella. I think we're both saying Jack being a little older and a little softer around the middle is not a deal breaker for this Joker's appearance.
Not at all. But again, you go with the looks of what he's wearing, like freaking A, that's the freaking Joker from the comic books.
Yep. And as much as we'll get into this too with a couple later actors, as much as I'll kind of give the fanboys a hard time when the perma smile conversation pops up, I appreciate the perma smile. Like, I'm not an anti perma smile guy. In fact, it might even be my preference. It's just not a necessity. I think look what I have to work here. The nerves are completely severed. I think that was a fantastic way, and to get into this character's psyche where, Jack Napier thought he was Mr. Slick, handsome, whether you want to say he's I don't want to offend Mr.
He's
Nicholson.
so handsome.
Yeah, but thought of himself as a good looking dude, sharp dress, and to have his ego impact, almost a little bit of a two-face approach when you think about it, like the impact to his physical appearance and having his facial nerves damaged and the grin being there, like kind of pushed him over the edge even further from just like your run-of-the-mill, rising through the ranks gangster to an unhinged maniac that wants to kill everybody with poison balloons. Like, the perma smile had a big role in that, in my opinion. Okay, so we've talked material, we've talked appearance. Let's go performance. Did Nicholson deliver the goods in this role or what?
Hell yeah, he did.
Oh, man. I mean, he's a great actor, right? But like he's even said how much he's talked about this a number of times over the years. Like, one of his most prized roles that he's played was this Joker, and he went all out for it.
He's such a distinguished and celebrated actor for everything he did, but I don't remember what like Academy Awards it was with something with him, and they assembled a bunch of clips of his characters and stuff, and his Joker character always got like the applause, the reaction and stuff, because it's just like, man, that's just a role. I think you can just see he's like, F and A, man, what a role to play.
I'm gonna do it. I'm
like,
gonna sink my teeth into it.
Yeah, so his performance probably exceeds all expectations. Like, I wasn't, I was 2.5 at the time, but you watch enough documentaries and stuff about it, and you hear of the people part of that. Was it like 90-second basically demo reel in theaters, and people saying like, oh my God, Nicholson looks great, and his line deliveries and everything is just like, any shortcomings you may have in his age and his looks, it's like performance. I don't know how you could have like not an A plus for his performance.
And what does it for me is he handles smaller moments just as well as the big. I think a lot of times, maybe even some younger fans, or just as years go on and everything kind of becomes shorthand with how we refer to things. Like, I think there's this thought that Nicholson's performance in Batman is bigger than it really is. And it definitely gets big. He definitely goes for it. Like, he's not afraid to take the big cut and try to send the thing into the bleachers. But the one of the scenes that stands out the most to me, where I think about how Nicholson really dials down some smaller moments. I found this hilarious, by the way, as a child. I don't know if I was just a little freak show or what, but when he blows away Carl Grissom and just keeps shooting, I thought that was super funny as a kid. Like, it didn't read as creepy. And I remember my mom in the theater, like, okay, Garrett, calm it down, right? Like, it's like, I got to take this kid to the therapist, because I thought that was hilarious. But then Nicholson, he sits down, Jack sits down, Joker sits down. There's blood splatter all over the newspaper. He smears it, wipes it off and smears the blood on the front page. He, Wing Freet terrorizes Gotham. Wait till they get a load of me. And then he goes, ooh, and then he does that, whoop, 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 and then starts laughing, and the laugh echoes into the next scene of Bruce and Vicky going up the stairs, right? That, when you watch it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's totally in character, right? Totally in character, but plays it much smaller than what he does in these other moments. I think he was incredibly smart with his performance. A criticism of Nicholson sometimes is Jack's always Jack, right? Good as he gets is Jack doing that, right? I can't remember his name, but like a lot of times Witches of Eastwick, like name the Shining, like name a movie. It's clearly Jack Nicholson. And this Joker has a lot of Jack Nicholson to it too, but he plays the character consistently and understands what's needed of the character from the scene to scene. I think it's, an all-timer in a world where I have to hear about how Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is an all-time comic book superhero villain. Like, I just want to point back at this bad boy and, no offense, Willem, but this is how you do it. And comic accuracy. We touched on this here and there. Any parting words on comic accuracy here?
Absolutely. Closely related to the scene you just talked about. Always talked about how the Joker, you don't know if he's going to shake your hand, stab you, give you a hug, or shoot you.
Nah.
Never know with the Joker. And at the end, his balloons are stolen. He stole my balloons. Why didn't anybody tell me he had one of those things? His loyal servant the entire movie, Bob, gun. Bob instantly gives him the gun. He shoots Bob. Done. And it's just like,
what?
Whoa. And that's such an unpredictable Joker, even though he will, without hesitation, shoot his right-hand man, because that's the Joker, unpredictable. And to me, that stands out as, yes, you have the looks. Yes, you have the laughs. You have the jokes and the energy and all that too. And it's like, but when it comes to characterization, it's like, that is such a huge component to the character of the Joker. You just don't know.
Bob was big enough character that Kenner gave him his own action figure, and he was unceremoniously blown away for not knowing that the Batwing existed. Who the hell knew the Batwing existed? Alfred probably didn't know there was a Batwing at this point. I mean, yep. So I think comic accuracy for me, I already touched on it. Having a definitive origin. Dies in the end. Other than that, it's all Joker to me, baby. I love it. Okay, let's go on. It's going to be almost another, 20 years, right? Before we get to another made such a big impact. Almost took 2 decades to revisit on film. Of course, we were talking about the great Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight 2008. Everybody knows, Ryan. Fan outcry. Internet was mad.
Yep.
The fanboys were upset. There may have been some homophobia at play, even though, Heath Ledger was a straight actor himself, but it appeared recently in Brokeback Mountain. Like, there was a lot of, unfortunate comments made about that, which was really weird if you think about some of the portrayals of Joker. But 10 Things I Hate About You. Gosh darn it. Why am I blanking on his Night movie that I like so much?
A Knight's Tale.
Wow.
The Patriot.
Patriot. I mean, so much. That guy had so much more to give. Really, really tragic loss. But the Joker stole the Dark Knight from Batman. Is that fair to say? Could you make an argument without being a jerk about it? Like, the Joker was just so big in that movie and really kind of caught the wind in its sails and the zeitgeist and the culture that if it didn't steal the movie from Batman, it was an even split on, is that a Batman movie or is it a Joker movie in some ways? So let's
go ahead.
Let's get into the material portion of it, because man, it is meaty. What are your thoughts on the material given to Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight?
Well, full confession here that The Dark Knight is my favorite movie of all time.
My favorite movie of all time.
Hey!
Tied with Ferris Bueller's Day Off, depending on how I'm feeling that day. But
they're practically the same film.
Basically. He's essentially Cameron.
Both in Chicago.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Material he was given, flawless.
Yeah.
Flawless material of that Ledger was given. Like, I think that's it. That's all I got. Flawless. Perfect material.
There's almost, I can't think of, from a script standpoint, what's on the page, what made its way to the screen. I thought my jokes were bad. Magic Trick. I mean, He makes jokes. He's uncomfortable. The nurse is like, that's hilarious when he dresses up. He dresses up as a nurse and goes like they give the character so much to do without giving you too much. We don't need to know. We don't want to know where this guy came from. Michael Caine says it the best. The only thing we need to know about this guy is some men just want to watch the world burn. Joker tells us himself, he's like a dog chasing a car. Like, that's all we need. And we're gonna, you know what, man, you and I love this one so much. We're gonna kind of group all these different things together because comic accuracy. Choose your own adventure origin stories. Like, I love it. Like, that's my favorite. Like, who is this character? I don't really want to know, but I want him to mess with us on who he might be, or I want there to be thoughts of what he might be. Can I ever tell you how I got these scars? Like, it's just so good. The material is fantastic. And while we can talk about appearance next, while the appearance isn't traditional, the comic book accuracy is incredible for me. The intricacy of the plan, being one step ahead for a lot of the story that's being told, right? The intentions that just wanted to mess stuff up because you can. I think it's just dynamite. You guys know this if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time. If you've ever listened to me and Lauer talk about anything Joker or the Dark Knight related, you know where I feel on this one. Ryan?
Kind of group it all together. His material was flawless. His performance was flawless because as you think of, so the material he was given, some of it was as simple as hi. Some of it was as simple as Harvey Dent, excuse me, I want to drive.
Right.
And let's see, what's never start with the head. It gets the victim all woozy. Oh, it's the old good cop, bad cop routine. What else you got that? And then, but now as I say that, so those are the lines, but you think in your head how he delivered them.
Oh my gosh.
The big action centerpiece on Lower Wacker Drive, and he kicks the guy out of the semi and he's like, Harvey Dent. And then pushes and he's like, excuse me, I want to drive. And then he's like, the
lip
performance of the lips,
serpentine tongue movements,
the rules, stuff like that. The in the hospital with Dent, and he's pushing the button to move him up, and he's like, oh, and then it's like he takes the mask off, like he's given, even when he's given really good, like monologues and speeches and stuff that are excellent, and then he's given high, and like the performance, the delivery is like,
but on the page it's HI period. That's what's on the
exactly
page.
So his performance there is like flawless, just like the material he was given. It was a great partnership of script and actor.
Well, and Nolan was just so genius, when he was asked about it, because of course that's, all he was asked about before the movie. And then of course, after we saw what he did, what Ledger did with the material. I remember Nolan saying he was looking for an actor that was going to be fearless. And you watch that, I'm like, that's an actor that has zero guard up. There's no concern with how is this going to read? Do I look cool? Am I going to be, is this my star making role? And I don't see any of it. Could I get nominated from, there's no awareness, right? You don't see the actor peeking through. I've watched that movie. I can't possibly tell you how many times. I still don't see Heath Ledger. I still do not see the dude that's saying, I love you, baby. And if it's like from 10 I don't see that guy at all. I don't see the dude that was in Brokeback Mountain. It's just not there. It is the Joker. It's a truly one of the best performances. And I think, unfortunately, now we're far enough past, and the dweebs on the internet, it started to become cool to kind of like, is it overrated? Is it really not? It's not as good as people say it is. It's as good as people say it is.
Yeah, it really is flawless performance, because like you said, and maybe you don't want to admit it in saying it, but does he steal the show? Like, he might. I hated the argument of The Dark Knight's not as good of a movie as you think, because if you remove the Joker, well, then it's not as good of a bad. Yeah. It's like,
well, guess what? The Joker's in that movie.
And I just say, remove Robert De Niro from The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie's not as good because you took away a really good part of the movie. Like,
yeah, weird.
It's a very piss poor defense or point that you're trying to make. And I think you could say, because I love when Christian Bale and I love when Christian Bale as Batman are on the screen in that movie. But definitely there is an urgency of like, oh man, is he going to see the Joker in this scene, etc. When Joker's on the screen, you're sucked in on the Joker.
Yeah,
like you're not necessarily thinking about. I can't speak for you, Garret Grev. But I don't know. So maybe it's accurate to say he does steal it, but that's to compliment how good it is, not to denounce Batman in the movie, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyways.
It's, you know, longtime listeners, anybody that follows me on Twitter, knows I'm also a fantasy football guy, and I've talked about at length. What are the odds? Yeah, what are the odds? One of my least favorite forms of fantasy football analysis is something that people do, and it drives me nuts. They look at a player and you say, well, if you take away all his breakout plays, all the big plays, all the, you know, long bombs for receivers, like if you take away this game, this, you know, reception for a 75-yard touchdown across a season, he didn't really look that good. Well, no, that player did that. Like that happened. You can't remove that and say that's an argument for why they're not as good as you think. That's an example of why they're awesome.
If they can take someone's talents away, they're not as talented.
Yeah. Turns out.
What an idea.
Let's touch on this real quick before we move into the more recent ones, because you know, we're talking a lot about these older ones, which is good. They're very good, and we've had a lot of time to marinate on them. Physical appearance / comic accuracy. We said from a material, performance, you know, kind of spirit of the character, it's really there. What are your thoughts on the physical appearance / comic accuracy from a visual standpoint in The Dark Knight?
Green hair, white skin, smiles.
Oh, it's there.
There's purple present. There's green present in his clothes at some point. And I would even say that the green and purple aren't even as big of a factors. It is green hair, white skin, and most of the time a red smile, red lipstick, something like that. That to me is the Joker. And I mean, just if you're talking about aesthetics and how they look, and got all of that. Also incorporated purple and green. And he wore a suit, and the Joker does wear suits a lot that are green and purple. So that fit too. He was a little bit more punk rock, which I didn't really see in comics at the time. It was Grant Morrison's R.I.P. around that time. And I don't get Heath Ledger Joker in the comics or vice versa, but that's not a slight to either. It's seems a little bit of an original take with comic book influence, but also a lot of cinematic influence.
Yeah.
Film influence.
The only thing I ever, you know, I had my reservations when the first picture showed up, and when we heard that he would be wearing makeup into the character. It was like a war paint makeup was the quote that was kicking around back in, you know, earlier in 2008. I preferred a perma white Joker at the time. It doesn't bother me. The white aesthetic is what is there. I don't believe we should have thought Cesar Romero's Joker was perma white. You know, that doesn't make it any less valid. But my preference would have been perma white. And I thought the eye black was a little weird at the time. Of course, now you grow into it. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't scream classic Joker to me, but it's unmistakably Joker. I think it's kind of silly to suggest otherwise. All right, let's flash forward in time a little bit. I am not going to talk about this as much, Ryan, because I'm a polite Minnesota boy, and I prefer to talk about things I like as opposed to things I don't like. And that is Jared Leto's Joker from Suicide Squad and later Zack Snyder's Justice League. I could tell you all the stuff I don't like about this character, but let's start with the material written for the character. This iteration of the Joker was sort of a flashy gun runner / drug dealer thug. Is that fair enough way to put it. Okay, so let's just stick with that. How is your response to that sort of framing of the Joker as a character? Was cool with you, not cool with you? You liked it the way they pulled it off? You tell me. I'm not going to judge you just because I already told you I don't really like this one.
I don't know how I'm going to avoid mashing up all the categories in responding.
That's fair.
So everything I answer, sorry, I'm not sticking in the one line, but I'll try and
away,
stick
Merle.
First, nice. Now that's a perfect segue into the next Joker.
The next
I love it. Yeah. Well done. I like the idea a little bit of he's like, I don't know, that person, because that doesn't feel too far off from some interpretations in the comics and what Joker is doing in some comic stories. A little bit gangsta-ish.
Well, Bermejo does that a little bit with Joker, right?
It's not, I don't feel like that is too far removed story-wise from the Azzarello Bermejo Joker story of leading a crew with other gangs, heads of gangs, stuff like that. That approach, I feel like that is relatable to comic versions. Yeah, so I don't think that is a bad approach.
Okay. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I don't think it's
not my favorite either.
It's certainly there. You can certainly find Joker stories where he is the leader of a gang. If I'm being honest, it felt too particular. Like, not just in the aesthetics, we'll talk about visuals, but it felt too particular for me in my preference. Of course, this is just me, Garrett, talking here. My preference is this chaotic Joker, right? Like, we don't know what he wants, and it's not always the same. He might go after something. Okay, Joker is doing this in this story, and then he turns and twists on you. I always thought, like, for the Joker to be the leader of a gang that's like arms and drug dealing, that's so focused and so specific of like a vocation. That's like a job. It's like, in the criminal world, that's like a job. It's like, I am a supply chain manager, right? Joker is the leader of a drug and weapons gang, right? Like, it felt just too on purpose or pointed or limited in some ways for me to love it as the Joker. I know it's out there in the comics, but you know what? When it's out there for the comics, it might be out there for like one run or a few issues, and then he's back to like cooking up, toxins and trying to slip it into fish or God knows whatever else. So that's and who knows, right, man? Like, if this thing in Suicide Squad, we should say, was a big hit, regardless of what people want to say now, that was a big hit. It was a very financially successful movie, and it had great audience score and really good legs, kept making money, very small drops week after week. But if that would have kept going, maybe Ledger's Joker would have been totally different. He wouldn't have been a gun runner in the next one. He would have been, I don't know, making exploding chickens or something like that.
Sure.
Appearance wise, that's the big one. Obviously, as you look at this group, I would say the biggest standout, they all have their own particularities. The biggest standout of this crowd, like the weirdo listening to, I don't know, like rap metal or something in the corner of the family Joker reunion is Leto's Joker, right? You got the tattoos, you got the grill. You don't have a perma smile at all. You just got some lipstick. What'd you think of the visuals here?
I can see that first image released in my head. I remember showing it around.
Oh, me too.
I wasn't all in, but I definitely I didn't dive head first into that support pool, but I was at least like waist deep.
I'm with you.
The tattoos and stuff didn't bother me. The damage on the forehead felt a little too on the nose.
Yeah.
The grills didn't really bother me. If anything, why it was only like waist high was because this feels maybe it's a little too much. But I'm not going to judge just based on a picture and have like, I'm either all in or all out just off this one image,
Which is good advice in general.
Green hair,
there.
Messed up skin, kind of an ugly skin. So that was discomforting. And I'm like, okay, cool. I like that. And his lips and smile and stuff like that. So
unsettling.
That aesthetic. Yeah. And and even in some of shots we ended up getting, or he was in a tuxedo, we saw the image of him dancing with Harley that you're like, oh my God, that's the Alex Ross image come to life. That's great. He's in long trench coats, no shirt. And that's kind of like, okay, whatever. To me, almost looked best just in like the Arkham pajama pants.
Yeah.
Like that seemed almost like the most natural of all those. And I think so aesthetics, it was like halfway there, halfway not. I feel, I don't know. Yeah. Aspects of it, I don't mind. Aspects of it, I kind of do. And we're talking strictly Suicide Squad. I'm about like middle of the road on that, but there's nothing about his looks that I love. So we'll put it that way.
Did you like the looks better with long-haired, face tattoo less ZSJL Joker?
No.
I didn't like the way it was shot.
The ZSJL version, it's a similar version, but also very different. And that's the one where we are Midwest nice, and I have zero positive things to say about that.
I got more positives to say about Air, to be honest. I'll say this about Air. I don't think I wasn't gonna. I was a defender because the fanboys on the internet were annoying me, and I'm like, hey, it's a first image. Let's think back. We've done this dance before, right? And a lot of times we end up liking the thing. So let's not go nuts here. Damage stood out to me. You and I, same page. Midwest brain. The grills, I'm like, well, man, he could have gotten his teeth busted out. And those are this guy, if he's been getting punched in the face for 20 years by Batman, like, might need some new teeth.
How many comic book panels have we seen where he's losing teeth getting punched? And Hush, he's losing teeth, but then somehow he's got teeth. So they all pop back. So that's just any dissection of that stuff that people also did. I'm like, I don't care. He's got grills. Okay.
Yeah. It felt like we were talking about before we hit record, goofy comedies we like from years gone by. One of my favorite comedies, right up there, one of my favorite movies, really, is Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And I feel like David Ayer needed a Paul Rudd giving him surfing lessons. They're just like, do less. You're doing too much. Do less. Like
more Paul Rudd, basically.
Yeah.
We needed more Paul Rudd in Suicide Squad.
Paul Rudd Joker might actually be interesting. Just too much, man. You had it dialed to 11. You should have had it at 8. Like that's about the most I can do. What'd you think of Leto's performance itself? Apart from
used to be such a defender in learning of how, like, continuing to learn. From the first viewing, I thought, I feel like there's more performance on that cutting room floor. And that was my go-to line in defending of the Joker always. And then to learn that the movie ended up being structured differently, and that's not Ayer's original vision. There was one thing, and I don't know if it was a TV spot or a trailer, which we learned was in that third act where Joker, he says something. He's like, he's holding the gun, he's in the tuxedo, and he's like, bye-bye, something like that. Yeah. And like, it's how long did it just take me to say that? 0.8 of a second. Like, but that felt very like, oh, I want to see more of that, because that seems like the good stuff. But I don't think we got much good stuff in Suicide Squad, whether it's on the cutting room floor or not. And I just used to defend it, and then and I thought also, like, maybe it's just because if there's a Joker, I need Batman to be there too for me to enjoy it, which the next movie we find out that's not true. Right. So I just think how you just said too much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, call back my buddy Paul Rudd once again. Paul Rudd needed to walk into the trailer and say, I quit wearing a watch when I moved out here. Yeah, I just use my cell phone. Do less. You're doing too much. I'm gonna call you PPOP. Do less. Right? Like, just do less, man. It's so performative. Like when I like Suicide Squad. I'm a Suicide Squad defender. Whatever whatever cut this was, music video, trailer, studio cut. I like that movie. I think it's fun. I think there's some bad parts, but I like some bad movies. I enjoy some movies that I know are unequivocally bad, and they're still fun. I think Suicide Squad's fun. I think Leto's performance is not good. I think he's doing too much. He's not quite Tommy Lee Jones Two-Face, but he's in that same lane, in my opinion. Like you're trying too hard, man. You're trying too hard. Dial it back.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. I feel like I've used up all my mean. You ready? Should we go Todd Phillips Joker with Mr. Joaquin Phoenix? Oh,
Leto's ZSJL is really, really, really bad.
Horrible.
And that's as much as I need to say about every aspect of it. I feel there's no comic relation, aesthetic, not so much. It's material really is not good. Performance is not good.
Anybody who tells me that's the greatest, I saw people say it's better than the interrogation scene from The Dark Knight. Like I'm done. I can't do it. And here's the deal. Not to get in all of it, right? Because people think BOF are going to crap on it just, because we get that reputation around stuff. It was shot in a driveway, and Snyder himself said most of the lines were ad-libbed, right? The famous one, I'm not going to say it because I'm
I will. Reach around.
Yeah, dude, Paul Rudd, get back in here. Tell him to do less again. He's doing it. He's doing too much all over again. He's never going to surf like that. Cesar Romero.
It was... Yeah. So I just think, and ultimately that is probably the punctuation mark of Leto's Joker. Just means like the whole era of Leto Joker, which isn't like a ton, but it's 2 performances in 2 movies.
It was enough for me.
Just not, I think it's not good. Low point for live action Joker.
I am going to make you rank these. As a matter of fact, we're going.
Okay.
We're going a little
spoiler alert.
Yeah. Guess what, dear listeners? If you're not paying attention, All right, let's hit Joaquin Phoenix. We've talked about this on a number of the most recent episodes, so I don't feel like we need to drain it all the way, but it is important, and this one's different in a number of ways, right?
Yeah.
This conceivably takes place in a real world, whether it's our real world or not. It's a much more real world. Once again, we have what seems to be a definitive origin. Like we know Arthur Fleck, at least we think we do throughout this thing. Let's go with the material. Also different from his Joker brothers, much heavier material. Would you agree with that, Lauer?
Yeah. I wouldn't say flawless material. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I am a script aficionado. And I know I didn't read the scripts. You, I think, did.
I did.
Okay. So by your comments on it, which you gave a very genuine, like one sentence kind of thing in tweeting recently about it. This is the case of actor elevates material.
Yeah.
I said flawless with Dark Knight because I think the material was just as good as the actor, and the actor is just as good as the material. It's a great partnership of the two. This one, I think, good thing that Phoenix was, because he elevated the material.
Yeah.
So I like the material for him. I'm just glad that he's as good as he is, which goes hand in hand with the performance, then I guess.
Yeah, for me, when I tweeted about this, I don't know, a couple days ago from this recording, and I've said this. I think I probably said it I said it on Twitter as bluntly as I've said it anywhere. I think the movie itself is better than it has any real right to be, because I know, at least from the version of the script that I read and hearing about from other folks that had read earlier scripts, including Bill Jet Ramey, this was a script that was in flux, and they were rewriting it even on the days that they shot it. So the final product is a movie that seems maybe more intentionally thoughtful or misleading or clever than what I believe they actually intended to make. And maybe that's too harsh. Maybe they found little things as they went that they wanted to tweak. But that happened through Phoenix's performance, through Todd Phillips kind of shooting this thing. Very, very, very quick filming schedule, by the way. And they were adjusting things as they went. Whether that means they were, kind of improvising and finding their groove in a positive way, or if they were throwing crap at the wall. I guess if you're a pessimist, I was feeling a little pessimistic when I wrote that, to be honest, a little critical. But the consistent thing in either of those views is Phoenix takes this thing and runs with it. He is genuinely unsettling. He is genuinely sympathetic and pathetic, but not scary necessarily as much as a little bit unnerving and sad, just a deeply sad man until it flips. And then he becomes scary, like when he goes to killer mode. And it's also, you don't know, like, right, there's this question, how much is there, how much is not there? But the reason why you as the audience get pulled into this is because how good Phoenix is.
Mm-hmm.
He plays it quiet, and then he has these outbursts of big, and the outbursts of big are so good because of how creepily effective he is at the silent and the small scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, he won the Oscar for a reason, right? Like, I don't want to
Yep.
sound like I think I'm some genius evaluating his acting. The guy won a friggin' Oscar. So performance and material, I think performance above material.
Yep.
They had something that they wanted to do, right? This started with the idea of taking, and critics have said kind of cliched look at mental health, but grounding it in somebody struggling and how that struggle pushed them to this identity. Not a fun watch for me. I can't tell you. I'm trying to think of all of these movies featuring the Joker. I bet it's the one I've watched the least. It's the one I've watched the least for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not a fun watch. It's a good watch. It's effective. It's not a lot of fun. So we've so material, appearance, performance, feel like we're kind of on the same page. We wrapped up all these. Well, let's go a little bit more to appearance. Variation on the clown motif, right? For this Joker, this is not a classic looking Joker. Maybe you don't agree with that. I'll tell you, in my view, it is not a classic appearing Joker. And from my point of view, would you agree with that, or would you disagree with it? It's fine to disagree, just because we normally agree.
Oh yeah,
I could actually maybe write the script for the disagreement because I know you so well.
Not as far removed as maybe one would think by what you said.
Okay.
I don't think it's very far removed from a classic Joker look. It's a bit of a blend of the usual. Okay, blend Nicholson and Romero's suit, and that's the color you get for Phoenix's suit.
Yep.
The makeup and everything. He reminds me, and Peter Vera, our boy Peter Vera, recognized this as well. That definitely reminds of Enrico Marini's Batman the Dark Prince Charming Joker. If you haven't read the book, so freaking underrated. More people need to read it. It's a great Batman story, but the Joker's look in that Phoenix, like, it's pretty damn close. It looks good. So I think aesthetically, I mean, we got the camera test. That was the first thing that we saw, and we got a first glimpse of what he'd look like with that and the makeup and stuff. I thought instantly, like, looks like the Joker.
Okay.
There you go.
I remember when the camera test came out, and I was like, oh, tone is good like that. Okay, I got an idea for what they want to do here. This feels powerful. Feels like it could be powerful. But I also remember thinking when I saw that, and then when I saw the previews and the trailer and commercials and the movie itself, it just kind of looks like a clown to me. I guess the Joker is designed to look like a clown. This version looked just kind of more like a clown than the Joker, the triangle eyes, the what red little, is it red? No, it's not red. Tip of his nose, is that green? Whatever. More face makeup, more face paint going on than what we typically see with the Joker, with white skin, red lips. Comic. When I was in the movie, it didn't take me out at all. I didn't see him in that makeup. Be like, no, come on now. See, that's not the Joker. Initially, the Joker. Right. When he had the bozo wig on, like, I was like, well, I know he's not keeping that on, because that was really just pure clown. Once he gets to sort of the slick back green look at the end of the movie, or towards the end of the movie, it's not so far removed that it's unrecognizable. If you just took that still and showed it to somebody, they would probably be able to tell you within two guesses if it was the Joker or not, right? Maybe less. Comic accuracy. This one might be a wild one. it didn't ever feel to me like they were going for comic accuracy. So I don't know that we could hold this for or against the character, but what are your thoughts on the comic accuracy of Phoenix's Joker?
Looks, like I said, with the Dark Prince Charming. Not saying that's where they got it or anything. I just, that's what I saw, that's what I thought. But I'll take it in Killing Joke. Maybe the only Joker story where we feel sympathy for him.
Okay. Yep.
In this movie, you can feel sympathy for him, as they're both trying to make it in stand-up comedy, and their personal life sucks.
All it takes is one bad day.
So that's the only part. I don't know if if Todd Phillips ever said anything about Killing Joke at the time or not, if he ever mentioned any specific comics or not. Don't remember about any of that, if he did or didn't, but that's kind of the only comic book like bullet points that maybe, and that's about it.
Right. I think the interesting thing is, like, and Bill's talked about this at length, it's one of his favorite things about the movie is, what we think about the Joker could be what Arthur Fleck has in his mind. How much of what we see in this movie is real, how much of it is in his imagination. If Arthur Fleck as a character is thinking about who he is fantasizing to be towards the end of the movie, that feels very much Joker, inspiring, the other crazies or disenfranchised folks to sort of like follow him or take up his mantle. Like we've seen that's real Joker, right? Like he's in the insane asylum at the end, and we're led to believe, he's either murdered a doctor or is fantasized murdering a doctor. Like that kind of felt like Joker in an asylum, right? Like didn't look like the Joker at that point, but whatever. I thought, as a movie away from Joker himself, probably the least comic book-y stuff was, again, giving him that definitive history or origin, with his taking care of his mom. And then just the role of the Waynes, like that almost felt, I've said this is more of a criticism of the movie than the character. I thought the movie would have been better, just kind of avoiding all that in general. But whatever, I'm not the director. I didn't make billions of dollars and I didn't win an Oscar. So don't listen to little old Garret, but very, strong performance, not intending to be the Joker. It's called Joker. I think that's for a reason. Move on. Last one.
All
one. Right.
I think it'll be quick.
Yeah. Barry, what did we say?
Barry K.
Barry K. Our man Barry K. from Ireland. We only got a little bit of him in the Batman, so we don't have to have that much to say. I've seen podcasts that went on for hours about just the Joker and the Batman. That's some silly stuff to me. Not a ton of material. Of course, everybody famously knows there was originally more, and Matt Reeves decided to leave some of that out, but let's stick to what we got on screen. As the Riddler is sitting in his cell in Arkham, the Joker's next to him.
Are you going to count the deleted scene in this too?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. All right.
I don't think so.
Got it. Okay.
So
even less to say then.
Right. Unnamed Arkham inmate is next. You know what? Screw it, Laura. Let's talk the deleted scene. Everybody's seen it anyway. And
I don't have that much to say still.
Yeah. I still don't have that much to say. So you see him in Arkham twice, right? Once with Batman in a version of an interview, and then once with Riddler at the end. What did you think about the material? Let's start with what was in the film and then hit the deleted scene. So what did you think about the material of him interacting with Riddler, Edward Nashton?
Good material.
Good material.
Felt like this guy, like once we got a hint of who he is, even it's not like, what's your name? I'm the Joker. We didn't get that kind of clarification, but we know. Right. And I thought material was good because he came off, he laughed and manipulative. I feel like you could just feel it of like, oh, he's gonna become friends with old Edward Nashton.
He's messing with him. He's
not
pulling him in
things.
for something reason. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. He's looking for how he can take advantage, get this person on his side, gain trust. He's up to no good, right?
Yep.
Very Joker. All right, now let's hit over to old Bats and Joker across the glass window from each other. What did you think of that one from a material standpoint?
Good. That's kind of as much as I have is just like good. It was a good tease for what their relationship could become.
I liked it more than you did.
Okay.
I liked it, and not there, so I can't bloviate, right? I can't write a dissertation, but Joker's intelligence was on display. Clearly, I think we know about what I would assume is the character and his crimes. If Batman is consulting him about a serial killer, I think that would tell us that this Joker is likely a serial killer, or at least educated in the ways of serial killers. But I found in the intelligence there to sort of ascertain what he did about the Riddler with a limited amount of time and information. But when he laughs at Batman because Batman doesn't get it, and it just cracks him up that he doesn't get his connection to the Riddler. And what we find out at the end of the movie, like the fact that he got there so fast, intelligence on display, and the fact that he thinks it's just hilarious and it cracks him up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not funny, but the Joker thinks it's funny. And that's what the Joker does. He thinks things that aren't funny are funny. Things that are dark and related to death are funny when no one else does. As I thought the material was great. I'll tie that directly into comic accuracy since we'll touch on appearance separate. Ring true to me on both fronts. I think they wrote good material that harkens back to the comics for this iteration.
Okay. Comic accuracy. I just got for the glimpse. I just see the cover of Azzarello and Bermejo's Joker.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
And it's the teeth. It's the teeth and the lips. That's what I got from gums. That. Yeah, it's it's disgusting and gross, and that
too disgusting and gross.
I don't know.
Yeah, hard to say. Haven't seen it.
That you get that walking toward me, and I'm going to be so much more unnerved than even Ledger's Joker walking toward me.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
This looks like
there's
the
just
keeper,
zombie. Yeah. And I like that. That's how I feel about it, because I'm like, okay, that's different.
That elicits a response
than what we've gotten before, and it elicits a response. So,
and we don't know if it'll stay that way, right, in the future.
Sure.
Like this,
like
either from a narrative standpoint where he heals or is healing or whatever, or if he's just like, I wanted him to look that way for that scene. If I ever make a Joker main villain movie, he could look totally different. Guess what? That's just fine. That happens in the movies. Okay. For me, it was a little I was glad that I felt grossed out by the Joker, but also I'm like, okay, this is a little bit much. Do we need all scabby and the hair falling out in patches and the hands are super scarred and the mouth? It might have been a little bit much for my own.
Paul Rudd show up again?
Paul Rudd, did
Paul show up again? Okay.
Doing too much. Do less. I'm gonna call you PPOP. It's great for a broken heart. Weed, you got any? But not to the same extent. Not to the same extent.
Sure.
They're doing a thing. And what else can you say? He's only on screen for a little bit. I think the performance was good. It was delivered well. You never really see with a lot of clarity. So I can't tell you, did Barry crush it? The lines seemed like they were delivered well. He had a decent laugh. I thought the laugh was better in the interview scene than the sort of ending laugh that we saw on the big screen. But whatever, you can laugh different ways all the time. So I couldn't tell you Barry's gonna crush it, best Joker ever. Let Ledger move over. There's a new Joker in town. None of that. Yeah. But I did a fine job with what they gave him. So color me intrigued. I'd like to see more. If Matt Reeves chooses to do more, if he doesn't, I'm fine.
Okay, done.
Cool.
Signed.
All right,
co-signed.
Lauer. So we've touched on. Here we go. Romero, Nicholson, Ledger, Leto. We start over. So we've touched on Romero, Nicholson, Ledger, Leto, Phoenix, and
K.
Barry K. Barry
K.
Kogan. Yeah. Let's rank these bad boys. If you'd be so kind, let's go first to worst. Worst to first is sometimes too difficult.
So
to track.
even with Barry K's limited Joker time, we got to put him on there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can asterisk him, by the way.
Okay, well, consider it done already.
Okay. Movable. Like that
But
could jump, it could drop, whatever.
Ledger number 1, Nicholson number 2.
Okay.
Little bit of a space. Phoenix, Romero, Barry K. Huge space.
Big old
Leto.
drop.
Yeah.
We're very close for the most part. Like if we had tiers, I think our
Yeah.
tiers would line up. I just thank you, by the way. I just spent, our whole time talking about Ledger oohing and eyeing and drooling over the performance. And while I think that performance is just, a powerhouse, I actually have Nicholson as my number 1. Yep. And
that doesn't surprise me though.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't want to say he's more entertaining. He's almost definitely more fun.
He's more fun
than Ledger, and
he's more classic Joker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like he's very classic Joker.
The Garret Grev I know you do enjoy fun.
Gosh darn it, I do enjoy I do enjoy having fun.
You can recognize that something is, if it's dark and not many uplifting, entertaining moments, you can recognize that they're good, but you're like, I'm not going to watch this again.
Yeah.
So
very
I totally
close.
get that.
Very close. Super difficult for me. Super difficult. And you catch me on a different day or a different week, I might flip flop them. They're 1A, 1B. That's my top tier. So Nicholson, Ledger, and then I actually went Romero.
Yeah.
Because as much as, just like I just talked about how great of a performance I think Phoenix had, Romero feels more Joker to me than Phoenix's Joker. Totally different iteration of Joker, but again, classic, fun, like that speaks to Joker for me. And not that Joker always needs to be classic and fun, because I love him.
In that Joker part, why I have it like that is the whole sense of, I know we have a lot more screen time of Romero than Phoenix, but it's the Brave and the Bold Batman the Animated Series comparison I made earlier.
Same thing.
I can binge Phoenix, and watch Romero.
Yep.
So,
and for me, I would go back and watch a Batman 66 Joker episode any day of the week over rewatching the Joker. It's a heavy watch for me. I don't know. It's a heavy watch, man.
Yeah,
it really is.
I get it.
And not that's not good. It just doesn't speak to me in the same way. So Romero, Phoenix, asterisks on Barry K. Who knows, man? I liked what I saw.
We can revisit this.
You could shoot to the top, and maybe doubtful, you could go way down to the subterranean below basement level with my very last place, Michael Morbius, Jared Leto.
Maybe Barry K is better at giving reach arounds than Leto.
Yeah, I don't want to find out. I don't want to find out.
He can deliver a better reach around than Jared Leto can. So.
Certainly not myself, but I don't ever want to have it. I don't ever want to have the debate settled on screen.
I don't want it.
Oh, Lauer, thank you so much. It's always a blast talking with you anytime we get to. I hope the listeners enjoy it just as much. I know
hope so too.
You're a favorite when you're on. That's why I have you back.
Oh, so stop
much.
it.
But
us two together, we turned into some chatty, some gossip gerties.
Crazy guy. Yeah, a couple gossip gerties here. So if the listeners want to keep listening to you, besides going back and listening to the last couple social hours that you were on, where else can they hear your dulcet tones?
They can hear my voice. It's not as much of a great dulcet tone as Sebastian Blood and Arrow, performed by Kevin Alejandro.
Yeah.
But you can hear me on the Batman Book Club, my podcast, the Batman Book Club, which Bill also posts on Batman on Film every time an episode is dropped. Follow on Twitter at the Batman BC for latest episode drops and upcoming episodes. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube, where Garrett is a recurring guest on that show, as are other BOF brethren, Peter Vera, Ryan Haas, the Complaint Department, Eric Holzman, our other bat bro, Justin Kowalski. Like, check that out. Fun episodes. A really good one is coming up actually with Ryan Haas and Justin Kowalski, where we're going to talk about the Batman Returns comic book adaptation.
Ooh, very nice.
Celebrate the 30th anniversary of the movie. So yeah, check that out if you will. And yeah, all my write-ups are on Batman on Film with reviews. And actually just a couple podcast episodes ago, I sat down with the one and only Sean Murphy.
You sure did.
And talked with him. Awesome conversation. Awesome guy. So yeah, check that stuff out, as well as the Social Hours with Bill. Go, Garrett. Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, you know me. I love talking with you. Anytime I can. I just love talking. I love interacting. And I'd love to keep the conversation going. You can do that with us over at the news feed for all things Batman on Film, so you know who to check out, where, what to read, what to listen to, all of that. That is at the Batman on Film, all one word, over on Twitter. Get your updates there. You can follow me personally. I am at Garret Wato. That is at GarretWato. Anything you'd like to hear about on future iterations of the podcast, send me your ideas. I'll listen to suggestions. Send me feedback. I'll read some of those reviews on future episodes. You can email me at garret.grev@batmanonfilm.com. That's garret.grev@batman-on-film.com. And remember, dear listeners, it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you. And let's put a smile on your face. Thank you for listening. All the best.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jet and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.